This is Walter.
Reading a scary book.
Come on, Zach, get in the car.
Yeah, Zach, get in the car.
I'm the caretaker here.
Guys, meet the caretaker.
Erik, where's the tape deck?
Erik.
Zach, get me a beer, too.
Zach.
I can't believe you guys want to pack up and leave just because we can't find the caretaker.
Hey, the caretaker's okay. He just had an accident.
I guess that explains the screaming that Doug heard.
Well, if the caretaker's not back, then who's that out in his trailer?
So, Zach, what's it gonna be? You gonna go get more beer like you said you would?
Zach, you promised to get more if we ran out.
Well, we couldn't have run out. No way.
Zach, you're the practical joker, not Doug.
Now, wait a minute, Lord. Don't get paranoid again.
Whatever you say, Zach. Julie's not perfect, but I don't think she'd stoop that low.
I'm not talking about Julie. I'm talking about a prowler.
Doug.
Laura thinks a prowler stole the beer. I'm sure Sarah's purse wasn't on this counter a couple minutes ago. I'll go find Erik and try to talk some sense into him.
Hello, Laura.
It's because of you, Laura. Laura, you have been, jumping to conclusions.
Come on, Erik, be reasonable.
Sarah thinks there's something going on between us.
I'm not doing much better with Erik. Let's go have a talk with the caretaker and see if he can explain what's going on around here.
Sarah, have you seen Erik? I can't find him anywhere.
Doug, Laura.
There's soup everywhere. Julie, did you hear me? Where's Julie?
Yeah, Doug, what are you talking about?
Julie! Zach, what took you so long?
Where's Zach? He didn't get any beer.
Yo, Zach!
Zach?
Erik.
Erik! Erik, please answer me! Erik!
Erik!
Hey, this is Robert Russler. I played Ron Grady in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues. This is episode 331. And this time it is the story of a very disgruntled Irishman called Erik Frelford. Yes, it's Psycho Strop. Oh, no, sorry, that's the wrong movie. No, Psycho Cop. From
Honestly, Justin, you're so childish.
Thank you. From 1988 to 89. Now, this is, as you probably might have guessed, is a Nathan pick. But I would say up front, apart from, I've reviewed this quite about 2015, and I would say my views have changed on it quite a bit. But also, I would say that actually, perhaps the backstory, or rather the person behind this movie, is arguably more interesting in the movie itself, which we'll obviously come on to a little bit later, as it were. But Nathan, Psycho Cop, is this a dream for you?
Oh, yes. I've always loved Psycho Cop. I'm surprised it's taken me this long to pick it, actually. I just want you guys to tell me one thing. Where's the caretaker?
He's got wood. I think he's got wood.
I have plenty to say about that, Nathan. Don't worry.
So, well, that'll be our feature presentation coming up. So, lots to talk about. But also we talk about, as we always do, what we've been catching up with recently with. So, Nathan, have you seen anything you want to tell us about?
Yes. I saw one that I know Joseph has seen, Drop. It's the one with the woman who goes on a date and they're in this kind of like high-rise restaurant at the top of this building, and she gets a text, basically I'm going to kill your family if you don't poison your date that she's seeing. So, it's, one of those kind of movies, the thriller, and there's a lot of suspects in the restaurant that could be the one doing it. There's some, fun action later in the in there, and I'm afraid of heights. So, it stuff like that always kind of makes me a little queasy myself, because I'm like, I wouldn't be sitting up against the window at this restaurant at all. But that's just a normal occasion, I wouldn't. But it was fun, and I enjoyed it. For what it was, I thought it was entertaining. So yeah, thumbs up.
Cool. I did see the trailer for it, and it looked intriguing, but I had completely forgotten all about it until you mentioned it. So, Joseph, you said you've seen it as well.
Yeah, I saw it. I liked it. Like Nathan, I liked it. It's completely routine. It's total fluff. You'll like it while you watch it, and then as soon as it's over, you'll forget all about it. And I have. It's directed by Christopher Landon, who he usually injects a lot of humor into his movies, but this one is completely devoid of humor. I mean, there's some kind of gallows humor here and there, but it's mostly He's trying to be tense, and he's pretty successful. You'll guess all the plot twists coming, and like I said, it's nothing earth-shattering, but it's a good, fun 90-minute popcorn ride. I think Eric would like this.
Eric, have you heard of it?
I have, yeah, because it's playing cinemas. Well, it was recently in cinemas over here, but I didn't get to see it. But I like the idea, the premise, as ludicrous as it sounds.
Is that because you like to drop your trousers at any given chance?
I only drop my trousers because it's so warm here at the moment.
It's quite warm here as well, but I am in Spain, so there's a reason for that. But, well, thank you, Nathan. Is there anything else?
Yes, I watched one called Bigfoot Trap. It's like this guy who is kind of into the whole Bigfoot legend, and he gets this kind of documentary filmmaker to come out to the woods with him, and he gets to hunt for Bigfoot. And then a series of things happens. I don't want to spoil anything because a series of things happens, and the whole situation gets way out of control. And it's it's pretty good. I found it really entertaining. The characters make some very questionable decisions, and I was like, why would you do this, or why would you do that? But that's pretty typical, I'd say, for a lot of movies. It's one of those movies that I think my biggest complaint is it's sort of like you guys in that movie Opera, Argento's Opera. You know how it kind of has this epilogue at the end that that I think we've said before could have been cut off the film altogether, and like it could have just ended at the opera house. This movie does something very similar where it kind of goes on a little longer than it probably should. I was like, I think the story was over before the movie was, but overall, it's still a thumbs up for me because, I really enjoyed it. And it's kind of a fun little thriller. And it kind of plays with the whole, is the Bigfoot real, or, are they seeing things? Is it, just somebody in a costume? I mean, it kind of goes back and forth with what's really going on. So yeah, I liked it.
Cool. Is it kind of like a Nathan style presentation, or is it?
I was about to ask.
I think it takes itself a little more seriously than my style of film. It's probably more well done than most of the movies I enjoy that you would consider a Nathan pick. I don't know that I'd necessarily call this one a Nathan pick.
Okay. Well, thank you, Nathan. Eric, how about you?
I have seen nothing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Apart from Psycho Cop.
Yeah.
Joseph, how about you?
Yeah, a couple of things. I won't talk about this too much. I'll just mention it real quick. I watched the last season of You, which I liked. It's trashy. It ended how I expected it. Pretty good show. 5 seasons. Fun. The two movies I got left that I saw, the first one's Hell of a Summer, which I think you saw, Justin.
I did, yes.
Yeah. I thought it had a few bright spots. It felt like they were trying to make Wet Hot American Summer and Scream, but the actors did not have the comedic timing of any of the actors from Wet Hot American Summer, and they didn't understand the horror of Scream. And I don't know, it just feels like they were laughing at their own jokes that I didn't find funny. The horror was very tame. The reveal of the killer, I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, but it is lifted wholesale from a pretty famous movie, and once you see it, you will spot it right away. So it's flat. That's all I'll say. It's just flat.
Yeah, I would echo that. I thought it was. It looks great. They've obviously is it Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things was one of the co-directors with a friend of his, and so he was obviously best known, I think, for Stranger Things. So it's kind of weird because it's the whole setup it's like a summer camp murder-thon, very much in the Friday 13th, The Burning, sleepaway camp style thing, but more probably Friday the 13th, because you've got the premise is they've gone to set up the camp before the kids arrive. So very 80s setup, but it's set in modern times. So you have all the characters that got things like nut allergy, you got theatre kid, those kind of things. So like modern wrinkles added to it. But it is a very straight. It feels like it was directed by two people, in so much that there were differing ideas going on all the time. And it was
it was directed by two people.
Well, it was. That's what I mean. It had that definitely felt that kind of schizophrenic feel to it, because it was so weird, because you had like all these off-screen deaths and very PG-rated violence, and then you have a scene where someone gets whacked in the head with an axe, and then you see all this blood pumping out, and it's like something from Nightmares in the Damaged Brain. Very strange. And then they spend half of the movie just basically doing this kind of meatballs, or the show you talked about, Joseph, type humor, but kind of a Gen Z version, which is kind of quite mild, I can guess. It did feel like people don't want to be put them down too much, but two young men kind of sat around laughing, writing jokes and thinking they were funny. And then no one told them they weren't, because he was from Stranger Things. That's how it felt. But it looks great. It's probably got one of the best recreation or like a feel of a summer camp slasher that I've seen in recent times. So it has that going for it. But yeah, not a great film, unfortunately. Kind of pretty forgettable.
Yeah.
No wonder. So I was going to say it was made in 2022, so it sat on the shelf for about 3 years, which is some indication, possibly even with his association with Stranger Things, that they didn't think it had much legs, unfortunately.
I don't want to say I was disappointed, because I didn't really have any expectations, but I didn't really care for it. But the only other movie I saw was The Monkey, which I know you and Nathan have seen. I'm not sure if Erik has seen this, but
not yet. No.
Who is this movie for? I mean, it's a complete waste of time. It's pointless. They've got this really cool looking monkey. They got obvious talent behind the camera, good actors, good director. There's atmosphere, but they just waste it on being completely quirky, just to be quirky, and it's so annoying. And it's pointless. I mean, there's no point to this movie whatsoever. It just happens. It exists, and I don't understand it. And I didn't like this movie at all. Like I said, they have all the perfect ingredients. Like the death scenes, they're kind of Final Destination-esque. Like they kind of hinge on all this Rube Goldberg happenstance to make them happen. They're pretty effective when they happen. But man, it's so flippant. It doesn't know what movie it wants to be. It's just, I don't know what this is, honestly, Justin.
Well, that was my feeling as well. I think I'll see what Nathan thinks in a minute. But we have talked about it a bit on the podcast before, because I saw it at the screening at the cinema here. And I kind of really loved Osgood Perkins' The Black Coat's Daughter, and especially Longlegs, which I thought were really good. And they were creepy, really creepy, odd, but quite funny. Whereas this was just kind of it. And I think I take my hat off to him in some ways, that he can make a movie that is so tonally absolutely different to his other stuff. But it felt like this movie was made by and for 14-year-old boys. I didn't really understand what he was going for, because I thought actually the idea behind it was quite creepy. It could have been done in a completely different approach and worked better. It just kind of, because of the humor, undercut everything else completely. The monkey itself looks great, but everything else, it just doesn't. I just sat. It's quite rare I'm sitting in a cinema thinking, oh, I don't really want to be watching this, because I feel a bit embarrassed. But I did with The Monkey, which is quite a rarity considering the amount of crap I watch.
I had that same feeling. Movies don't typically embarrass me when I'm watching them, but I was sitting there watching that and I felt humiliated. Like, I'm wasting my time. I don't have much longer left on this earth, and I don't want to waste it on movies like The Monkey. This is kind of a preamble, but I'd rather waste it on Psycho Cop.
Well, Nathan, what were your thoughts on The Monkey?
I liked it probably more than you guys did. I found it, fairly entertaining throughout. My biggest thing that I would say for anybody going into this movie is it's a extremely weird movie. It's very weird. Like, characters don't behave the way that a normal person would behave,
like in Psycho Cop, which is super realistic.
Yeah, I mean, I go for realism, and this. I only go for realism, sort of like Crazy Fat Ethel too. I think that that's very realistic. But in the Monkey, it's like there's a scene where the mom is with her two sons, and they're young, they're kids, and she's just talking like at this funeral, like, yes, she goes, everyone's gonna die, like, you're gonna die and I'm gonna die, and she's like, in some in very painful, excruciating ways, and she just goes into this weird, morbid, like description of how people could possibly die. And I'm like, but that's the way every character in this movie is. They all act weird like that. But I did love the death scenes. The monkey itself is very creepy. So yeah, I really liked it. But I did think they tried to go a little too far with the weird angle.
Yes. Well, I'm sure there's there are people out there who'd really like it. So, but it's good to have a difference of opinion. Was there anything else?
Are we still on me? Oh yeah. No, I think that's it.
Okay. I caught up with a film that you reviewed for the website, Joseph, over the weekend, Founders Day, which is the newish. You reviewed that, didn't you?
Did I?
You did. Yes.
Yes, and you gave it a
What's it about?
Scathing review about murders in a slasher movie.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember now. Oh, yeah, that one.
And I, to be honest, I didn't hate it. I think sometimes it really helps to go in with very low expectations, and sometimes you can be pleasantly surprised. And I didn't hate this at all. I thought it was quite fun. So I a bit heavy-handed at times, and I didn't really like the idea of a killer going around with a kind of a gravel type thing, like a judge thing, whacking people over the head. He doesn't really work for a slasher movie particularly, although I think in this one he's got like a spring-loaded, or she has spring-loaded, I'm not saying he or she, whichever one it is, spring-loaded knife underneath. But yeah, I didn't hate it. I thought it felt quite sort of tonally quite similar to Thanksgiving. There's been quite a lot of slasher movies around that, a small town Americana dysfunction kind of thing going on, and this one is obviously more political in so much the whole setup is this around this mayoral election where you've got two fighting factions, and they're being bumped off, and people around them being bumped off one by one. So, but you really didn't like it, Joseph, did you?
Well, honestly, I don't really remember. I'm seeing vague memories. Like I remember Amy Hargreaves is like a mayor of the town, and she's fighting with another guy who's running for mayor. Is that the same movie?
It is, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's coming back to me now. I just felt like, if I'm remembering correctly, like the final girl, like she disappears for like half the movie, and they don't really spend too much like on any one character. And I think that was probably my ultimate problem, is like I didn't really care about anyone. And it just felt like it was all kind of all over the place. I mean, I'm just kind of going from my shoddy memory here, but I'll watch it again. I would be glad to watch it again.
Okay. Well, maybe sometimes when you watch a film second time, it improves, and perhaps, who knows, a Psycho Cop, that might be the case for me. But the other one, I was lucky enough to catch a screening of Clown in the Cornfield, which I would say off the top, I've just published a review on Hysteria Lives, so if you want to go and catch and see what I said there. But I really enjoyed this. It's not perfect. It's based on 2022 novel by someone called Adam Cesar. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name. And to be honest, the idea of a killer clown is always going to be good, but you could argue after Art the Clown, Pennywise, Sid Haig, or how many killer clowns can you have? So in some ways it's kind of beating a dead horse with it. But if you want to slasher set up a clown in a cornfield with a chainsaw or a machete or a pitchfork is a pretty good setup. And this is kind of it's what I won't give any spoilers at all, because I think the part of the fun is going and finding out. But it certainly sets itself up as like a 90s slasher, in so much you've got this young 17-year-old girl going to this new town with her father starting a new job as a doctor. She meets this kind of local clique at the high school, and they're making YouTube videos where they're kind of somebody dressed as Friendo, which is the mascot of the now burnt down syrup factory for the town, and uploading them. But then someone dresses up as Friendo for real and starts killing people for real. So that's kind of the basic setup.
Is it a whodunit?
It is a whodunit, yeah.
Ooh,
so, okay. But the whodunit kind of, it's the angle that kind of goes up to the halfway mark, but I won't give any more spoilers, but it's but it starts very much like that kind of 90s, slightly moping teenagers. Everyone's a bit like got problems, all that kind of crap. It's called character building apparently, but it does that 90s, very much that very 90s feel, kind of Dawson's Creek, kind of that type of feel that you saw him Scream. I Know You Did Last Summer, all those kind of films. So it's got that build up, but it gets about halfway point. I'm not going to give anything away, but it when you get the clown arrives for good in the second half, it turns into not a completely different type of movie, but it turns into this kind of madcap, almost like you can imagine a slasher movie taking place in a big top. So you've got this kind of over the top kind of like custard pie fights with offal type thing, with people being chainsawed and heads lopped off, and all sorts of really gory stuff happening. And it's really frenetic, kind of fast-paced, kind of sugar rush of a movie. It doesn't quite work, but for the ride, it was quite exhilarating. It's got a real fun popcorn slasher movie. So I would urge, if as it just come out at the cinemas, and I think at time of recording, it's kind of gone at number 5 at the box office. So obviously, if you want to see a sequel, then go and see it. But any interest in watching that?
Oh yeah, I read one of the books. I don't remember which one it was, but I thought this would translate well to a movie. So I really want to see it. Yeah,
it's kind of. I'd be interested to hear what you think after it, because it goes off in a slightly different direction. And some of the same directions of modern slashers, but it does something that I wasn't expecting. A couple of things I wasn't expecting, but still works in that kind of basic framework of a slasher movie. So okay, well, Psycho Cop, back to the late 80s. And what do we have here we're playing in with?
We have a video trailer for Psycho Cop.
He is here to protect and serve.
Looks like you need a policeman.
His job is to safeguard the innocent.
What was that?
Pursue the guilty.
Everything's under control.
And uphold the law.
Nothing to worry about, miss.
There are good cops.
Officer?
And there are bad cops.
I said hands in the air!
But be thankful there's only one.
Police Officer Joe Vickers.
Psycho Cop.
At your service.
He's the judge, the jury, the executioner.
You have the right to remain silent!
Now, Terror has a badge.
Looking for me?
Psycho Cop. He always gets his man.
Shouldn't run from the police.
And everybody else.
He has no name. He has no face, but he's out there. 6 college students take a weekend trip to a mansion in the woods. Slowly, their party becomes a terrifying game of survival. And just as they think their prayers have been answered, the most deadly enemy of all has responded to their calls for help. He's the last cop they'll ever meet. That's the back of the video box.
Hang on, Nathan.
What?
He does have a name, and he does have a face.
I don't know if the people that wrote this description on the back of the box watched the movie.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, that's the back of the video box, which is completely inaccurate. But yeah, Psycho Cop, like part of the box says, it's about a group of college students. They go on a trip. There's a insane devil worshipping ex-police officer that's roaming the forest nearby, and starts picking them off one by one, which is your classic slasher setup. I am a big fan of Psycho Cop. If I'm honest, I probably prefer the sequel, but I still love this first one regardless. I think that it's really silly, but the characters are fun. You've got the character Julie, who kind of has your wonderful 80s hair, and she's constantly brushing it in every scene that you see. And there were some parts I was like, are these people really very good friends? Because When Laura gets concerned that something's going on, like her friends turn on her very quickly. They're like, no, we're not staying in the same room as you, which seems over the top to me. But, that's just how these characters are. Robert Schaefer, he is excellent. He is very cheesy. His one-liners are very cheesy as the title character. I find his performance to be perfect for this movie. He's got a lot of scenes where his eyes are real wide open in that crazy kind of way. Think the killer from Urban Legend in a way with the facial expressions. The death scenes, they're probably nothing to write home about, but it didn't matter. I mean, I just had a really fun time watching this, and, it's just as fun as I remember it being, very late 80s slasher, and, fun performances. I mean, I would definitely give it a thumbs up because I'm, such a big fan of it. But I'm very curious, Justin, because you said your opinion may have changed on this, and your original opinion, according to Wikipedia, is that you gave it a 2 out of 5. So what do you think?
Well, I would say I enjoyed it more this time because actually I saw it, viewed it more as a kind of parody, really, rather than a straight ahead slasher movie. Rewatching it this time, it felt like the acting was so kind of over the top, as in like the line, everyone was kind of like chewing the scenery and rolling their eyes, and everyone was really stroppy, or kind of everything was extra. It kind of felt to me, and given what we'll get into in the background about the director, considering he not only directed it, he wrote it. It feels to me that this was possibly written as a spoof, and a knowing spoof rather than necessarily a straight-ahead slasher movie. It works as a straight-ahead slasher movie. So viewing it through in that context, I enjoyed it a lot more. I think I think when I first watched it, I mean, I've always got a bug. A bug to pick with, the kind of post-Freddy wisecracking killers. The killer cop in this, at least in Maniac Cop, although that can be a bit cheesy at times, the cop in that has got a bit of a sense of mystery and a bit of, sense of menace. Whereas that you've got Robert Schaefer's character, who I enjoy in the role. I think he's great in the role. He's so over the top and bug-eyed and everything. It's just so extreme, and he's this kind of devil worshipper, Satanist. But there's no real reason he's doing any of this. That's kind of an extra wrinkle in his whatever. So I kind of enjoyed it more this time. I enjoyed the performances because they were so kind of like, they felt like they were quite knowing. And the characters weren't. They were acting that way on purpose, rather just than because they were bad actors. Is how I viewed it. I might be completely wrong, but I'd be interested in hearing what other people think.
Very cool. Very cool. Joseph, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this might be the first movie that you've picked, Nathan, that's so flat that it sort of becomes an art form. The killer and his one-liners, for example, aren't even puns. They're just kind of like normal monotone cop slogans like, "Stop this, you're obstructing justice." And it basically becomes this rogues gallery of police speak, or, and this is always fun, a never-ending parade of characters repeating names over and over. Erik, Doug, Julie, Zach. And I'm always reminded of the Poltergeist 3 review from Siskel and Ebert. Carol Ann. I love that. And you mentioned the caretaker, Nathan. I actually counted it on my second viewing. They mentioned the word caretaker a total of 15 times. 16 if you count Julie, I think it was, getting him confused with a security guard. And then there's one instance where a character deems it necessary to describe what a caretaker does. I guess they were padding out runtime there. I also like Sarah and her mouth, which I noted looked like the entrance to Castle Grayskull when she screams. The scene where, I think it was Julie again. She's being chased by the killer in the woods while he's in the squad car and she's on foot. Of course, she runs in a straight line, despite having the advantage of several tree lines at her disposal. I also laughed out loud when Doug tells Laura to run back to the house and start the car, and he'll meet her there. he's going to distract the killer, you see. And I'm like, why? He doesn't even do anything to divert the killer. He just runs around like a fucking idiot, waving his arms around. Like he literally just does that, and then he gets back to the car. So why couldn't he go with her to the car? And they could just drove off together. Of course, when she gets to the car, it won't start because they never do. I love that. It almost feels like with him, they were just padding out the runtime again. Imagine that. Doug also has to seriously consider joining the 49ers at some point because he ineffectually tosses this piece of tree bark at the killer and it impales him cleanly straight through his torso. It's very impressive. And that's, Nathan, that's Psycho Cop in a nutshell for me. Believe it or not, I've been, aware of this movie and its sequel forever, but I realized watching it this week that I don't think I'd seen it before. And I know I haven't seen the sequel, and I have to say, I didn't think it was a good slasher movie at all, but I found myself, there's more than enough idiosyncrasies here to laugh at that I can comfortably say that I recommend this. When we get into the background on the director, you're going to get a visual picture of the last man on earth you'd expect to direct a piece of junk like this, but somehow it all works. I love the late 80s white people problems dialogue from the characters. I think it's really fun to listen to, especially from the girls when they, like you said, when they start to grow annoyed with one another and they don't trust one another. I found their dialogue, more fun than the killer's one-liners, honestly. And like I said, there are so many wait a minute moments to spot. Like the killer, he puts 666 on his hand, but he puts it the wrong way. Like if the person's going to read it, they're going to see 999.
And isn't it it's in Biro as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
But 999 is the number to ring the police in the UK and Ireland.
Oh, so maybe, okay. Maybe it's a double meaning there then. You picked up on that, Eric. That's cool. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that where the slasher plot really doesn't even matter. I also love that gigantic-ass mansion that they were staying in. It's so kind of like late 80s cavernous. And it has tacky, kind of eggshell white, offsetting these tan countertops. And there's one room that has all this black and white line dotted wallpaper. It's just, and then there's gold plated chandeliers hanging from the ceilings. It's just amazing. Eric said this about Camp Blood 2 in relation to Camp Blood a few months back, that if you were to pick Camp Blood 2 next, that he wouldn't balk. Well, if you were to pick Psycho Cop 2 next, Nathan, I wouldn't balk. So thumbs up for me on Psycho Cop.
Well, you may get your wish. Eric, what are your thoughts?
Well, very much in line with what Joseph was saying, actually, because I'd never seen either Psycho Cop film before. So I was expecting something really, really terrible, which in fairness is kind of what I got, but I got something that was enjoyably terrible. But I also was expecting it to be urban because I thought the Psycho Cop would be running around suburbia or maybe the city or something kind of like high rise or something. So I was delighted when my favorite slasher location, the woods, was chosen as the backdrop for Psycho Cop. So it was very back to basics for the most part, which I liked. As everyone's been saying, I love the kind of repetition in the movie, people calling out each other's names, but also, you could make a good drinking game out of how many times Doug and Laura suggest phoning the police, how many times my namesake Erik suggests sex in the woods only to get the response, I won't because of all the mosquitoes, or how many times they suggest looking for the caretaker, how many times Laura mentions the crosses in the woods, how many times Julie brushes her hair and obsesses over her hairbrush. She truly is the kind of the Marcia Brady of the movie. There's also loads of jump scares with various house guests going off on their own and looking in a shed or something out the back of the house and bumping into one of their friends. That's supposed to be kind of a false scare. There's also the obsession with the beer. Who drank all the beer? Let's check the cooler. Is there more beer? I'm sure we can't have drunk that much beer. Let's go get some more beer. Let's go into town to get more beer. Hey, he's back. There's the car. Let's see if he has the beer. What should be an incidental moment about, we seem to have lost some of our beer. It turns into kind of this 5-minute sequence of people discussing where could the beer have gone. It's almost like they hit copy and paste on the script for the mid sort of 40 minutes, and they just use that to fill it out. And the more repetitious it got, the more fun I had with it. But I did enjoy it. As I said, it's back to basics, no nonsense slasher in the woods action. As Justin was saying, I prefer a more mysterious killer. I don't really enjoy the one-liners of the psycho cop himself. I prefer a silent killer behind a mask rather than one that's sort of grinning and laughing and gurning and dishing out one-liners. But I did think the crosses in the woods were a nice touch, because you have that kind of happy birthday to me moment towards the end where all the dead friends are kind of arranged on the crosses, which I thought was a pure kind of slasher moment. I did, as Joseph was saying, I loved the late 80s aesthetic of the film. All those stonewashed jeans and mullets and Walkmans. I also thought it was interesting that a lot of the dialogue seemed to be ADR'd in afterwards, which gave it that kind of Euro horror vibe in places. I did, as I said, made a note that Psycho Cop's 666 tattoo looked like it was drawn on in biro. There was no attempt at all to make it look like a actual tattoo. I thought the character of Laura kind of reminded me of Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween, probably just the hair. But she had the kind of face of Lily Taylor as well, who's, from The Conjuring and from the remake of The Haunting. And yeah, I did make a note of Sarah having the biggest mouth ever. It's like Tina Turner crossed with Sade. When she does that scream as the psycho cop is approaching her, I think she's handcuffed to a set of drawers or something. I thought that was great fun. There was a small amount of gore. I thought the effect of the axe to the head was pretty effective, but for me, the film's strengths lie in kind of the setting, that enormous house in the middle of nowhere, which kind of reminded me of the setup for Friday the 13th Part 3. It had that kind of thing going on. And the other thing it had going for it is, as I said, the really silly and funny repetition in the script with the same characters saying the same thing over and over again until the killings start. That made me kind of LOL. Yeah, so I would really be all on for covering the sequel as well, because I had a lot of fun actually with Psycho Cop.
Very nice, very nice. I'm glad that you all seem to have liked it, even, for all the wrong reasons, which, I'd say rings true for a lot of my choices.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we can move on to background. I don't have much because I couldn't find much, and I know you guys have a lot regarding the director, which I'm very interested in hearing. I listened to an interview with Robert Schaefer. He was in The Office, which I'm a fan of as well. He played Bob Vance. And I thought he was a lot of fun in that, because you speak of repetition, Erik, in the show The Office, he plays Bob Vance and he owns a refrigeration company. And every single time he shows up, he says, that he's Bob Vance of Vance Refrigeration. So, I think that it's fun to see him, younger, playing this psycho cop. In the interview, he mentioned that he had written a Psycho Cop 3 script, which I would be very interested in knowing, where they would take a part 3. But, that's what I have. So I'd be interested in what you guys have. Justin, you had some, didn't you?
Well, I know Joseph has some stuff around the director, which I'll add to, but I'll let him talk about that. But I will say one thing to start off with was that obviously this has a hard to ignore comparison or sort of similarity to another cop movie, namely Beverly Hills Cop. Maniac Cop, Bill Lustig's Maniac Cop, which came out the year before. And certainly the makers of Maniac Cop noticed the similarity, and they took out an injunction to stop it being released on video in November of 1989. There was a couple of press articles that I saw. I'll just read this very quickly. It says, elsewhere in Movieland, the artistic exploration of similar moral theme by two different filmmakers created an identity crisis that could only be resolved in court. Makers of the movie Maniac Cop persuaded a judge to stop the video distribution of Psycho Cop, arguing that Psycho Cop is in many ways a virtual duplicate of their Maniac Cop. The most damning evidence was a comparison of the two slogans. For Maniac Cop, it was no one knows his name and no one knows his face. And for Psycho Cop, the slogan was he has no name, he has no face, which of course also leads into what you said about the back of the box, which of course isn't actually in the movie, but it's probably the reason why they used it on the back of the box to not trick people, but make people think of Maniac Cop, which of course had been, a relatively big hit for a low budget movie the year before. Now that must have got resolved quite quickly because I believe it came out on video in the United States in December of 1989, so fairly quickly afterwards. The video copy I used to have was actually an Australian copy because I'm not sure if it ever got a UK release, but the other kind of slight mystery about the movie, apart from the director, which I'm sure Joseph will talk about shortly, was whether or not it got a theatrical release. Because it had, if you look online, there are American one-sheets, cinema posters for this movie, but I could find no evidence that it got any kind of cinema release. So it probably was prepped for one, or and possibly there was an injunction against that. I don't know, but there are one-sheets out there which look more like cinema posters than video posters, so that's a bit of a mystery. But it did get a release in Canada, and I found the only review I could find online in the newspapers was a 2-star review, and this is I forgot to write it in the paper, it's something like the Toronto Star or something, but it says, slightly less than upstanding police officer Schaefer stalks the prerequisite sextet of college kids in an isolated woodland cabin. Yet another pointless entry in the crazed murderer hacking up pretty young girls in the woods genre. Less inventive and appealing than most. In fact, it makes the recent rip-off Edge of the Axe look almost professional by comparison. So if you're, what a comparison there. This one features really bad dubbing, lame effects, and steely-eyed maniac Schaefer spouting bon mots so cheap that even Freddy Krueger would choke on them. It says, see also Maniac Cop, almost the same title, hardly the same movie. So that was the only kind of review contemporary to the release that I could find. But yeah, I do have a few bits. I don't think Joseph got them, director, but I'd be interested to find out. This is probably, for me, the kind of most interesting aspect of the movie.
Well, before I get to that, I will confirm that Southgate Entertainment released the film via VHS in '89 here. So it did not, I guess that injunction did not go through. But the amusing thing about the VHS release here, and you can possibly take this as both a social jape against bad policing policies or a comment on the quality of the movie, or both, but the trailer prior to Psycho Cop on the VHS is a chorus of disapproval. So just take that how you want. But the director, yeah, I think you might have a lot of this info, Justin. So I've kind of skirted around a lot of it, but I'll probably touch on some of it so you can just fill in the blanks. But it turns out that the director, Wallace Bean Potts, and his middle name is Bean, and that's important, was arguably probably more interesting than the movie. He was also an archivist who spent many years working for the Rudolf Nureyev Foundation, which, according to their website, promotes the legacy of famous ballet dancer and choreographer Rudolf Nureyev by supporting the next generation of talent, celebrating his contribution to dance, and promoting the health, well-being, and safeguarding of dancers. Rudolph will be mentioned quite a bit going forward in all of this. So actress, model, and AIDS activist Cynthia O'Neill, who was once married to famous stage and screen actor Patrick O'Neill until his death in '94. She mentions having first met Potts late one evening in her memoir, Talk Softly. She recalls hosting a dinner party in the spring of 1971 with her husband Patrick, and Rudolf Nureyev was their guest of honor. And he arrived with someone who she described as a great-looking guy who was carrying this large burlap sack, and both he and Nureyev were grinning ear to ear. Anyway, the great-looking guy was obviously Potts, and the contents of the burlap sack was 3 massive lobsters, and they were still alive, and they dumped them out on the floor in the middle of this intimate get-together, and they caused this commotion that woke O'Neill's 5-year-old son, Max, who came running into the dining area amongst the commotion and looked at Nureyev blankly and asked him, "Are you still dancing, Nureyev?" And from that moment on, Cynthia lovingly referred to Wallace by his middle name only, Bean. And she also mentions that when the AIDS crisis first broke, the first phone call she received was from Bean, who had just undertaken some tests at the behest of his doctor while he was feeling ill. And, he was, of course, worried about this new disease that was kind of, targeting gay people. But as he died from lymphoma in 2006, he obviously did not have the disease. But Bean's longtime friend, Rudolf Nureyev, would eventually contract the disease. And O'Neill mentions at the time of his death in 1992 from it, having run an AIDS crisis center herself, which Bean knew about, but for whatever reason, Nureyev himself never reached out to her when he had AIDS, even though she surmised that he'd have to have known about her charity through Bean. And she never asked Bean if he mentioned it to Nureyev, as she more or less states that if Nureyev knew of the foundation and wanted to call, he probably would have, and that she didn't think Bean would have kept something like that a secret from him. So basically, like, he didn't reach out to her for whatever reason. Those reasons are just kind of under lock and key because everyone barring Cynthia is, long passed on. And that's basically all to say that the director of the schlocky Psycho Cop had a very complex life outside of this Z-grade slasher film. I mean, he's hobnobbing with legendary ballet dancers in most likely a romantic fashion and having crazy dinner parties with Hollywood royalty. I mean, it's not a bad for a gay kid out of Birmingham, Alabama, of all places. That's all I have on the director, Justin.
Erik, did you want to say anything, or shall I just talk?
I don't do anything on the director, but I do have some other stuff to say. Okay,
well, if I just finish up on the director and then I'll pass over to you. But yes, I mean, Wallace Potts was kind of how you quite join the dots between Psycho Cop and his early career, because yes, I mean, he was a long-term lover of Rudolf Nureyev. He also directed gay porn in France in the early 1970s. And his recent, the movie he made, it's a quasi-erotic documentary called Le Beau Mec. It's been released on 4K remastered Blu-ray recently in the last year or so. And it's a kind of quasi-documentary following around France's first gay adult superstar, actor Carl Forrest. And the reason I bring that up is that I did watch a little bit of that for research, and there is a scene in it, which of course it does mix in hardcore porn into this, very beautifully done. And in fact, apparently Rudolf Nureyev directed some of the dance sequences in the movie, and some other Hollywood people involved. I can't remember the names. One of them was famous cinematographer, and another one was a famous sort of music person who were involved in big Hollywood productions, also were allegedly involved in the making of this. But there is a scene, and I can confirm, with a cop with mirrored glasses and it's one of those kind of motorcycle cop sort of round shiny helmets. Somebody does spunk on it. So I do wonder if that is where Wallace Potts got the idea for Psycho Cop, and whether Robert Schaefer ever knew that.
How crude.
Well, it's true. There is a scene in this movie where various frottage
I wouldn't
goes
allow
on.
such filth in my house.
I also like how Justin he said, I watched it for research purposes only, and I'm like, yeah, right.
Yeah, like we did something recently where he had to, for research purposes, uncover a picture of one of the stars of the movie naked. What was that? It was a few weeks ago.
Oh,
wasn't that the spunk one or Breeders where they got spunked on or something? It looked like they got spunked on.
No, that was Ted Pryor.
Ted Pryor, that was it.
Yes.
From Aerobicide.
Well, he did get it all out in Playgirl, didn't he? Famously.
He did.
So yes, so I think that's everything I have. Oh, apart from he also, I was going to say very quickly, I mean, he went from working, he also worked with Pier Paolo Pasolini on the Canterbury Tales as a production assistant, and he worked with other directors like Mike Nichols. So he was kind of, so he had a very varied career. So I found one photo I found was Robert Schaefer and Wallace Potts at the wrap party of Psycho Cop, sharing a bit of cake. Now, Wallace Potts wrote this. He wasn't somebody, because quite often with these kind of movies, you would have somebody going, I've got a script, I've got some money, will you direct it? And you get directors for hire all the time. People come in, it's not a passion project. I'm not saying that Psycho Cop was a passion project for Wallace Potts, but he wrote it and directed it. So and unfortunately, we may now never know how he went from the world of being an archivist living in Bath for Rudolf Nureyev's legacy to Psycho Cop.
I can't reconcile this person with this movie. It's very difficult when you read about this man.
I think it's going to sometimes, always, when I kind of see something like this, because on IMDb there are quite often errors, and they get people's names mixed up with people who sound similar. And so I thought, this has to be a mistake. It's a different Wallace Potts. But in the New York Times obituary for Wallace Potts, it mentions Psycho Cop. So I don't think it is a mistake. I think it is the same person. But it just goes to show you can do, you can do whatever you put your mind to.
Apparently, yeah.
Yes. Well, I was looking at some of the cast, and you mentioned Robert Schaefer, who plays Psycho Cop himself. His most recent film credit on IMDb is a film called K, The Butcher Shitter, from 2024. I have no idea what the film's about, but would you watch a film called The Butcher Shitter?
That sounds like a remake of Violent Shit, because it's Carl the Butcher Shitter from the Violent Shit.
Ah, okay. But he's also in the wonderfully titled 2015 film called Helen Keller versus Nightwolves, which stars Lynn Shay as Helen Keller, which I find bizarre. Now, Cindy,
I'm picturing Helen Keller like fanning her arms at a pack of wolves.
Yeah. Oh, how would she know they're there?
I know.
Cindy Geyer, who plays Julie, who's the girl obsessed with brushing her hair all the time, she is most famous for being on the cover of about 2,000 romantic novels. So she's kind of like the female version of Fabio. So she's on like loads of sort of paperback romance novels. But she was also very briefly engaged to Corey Haim. So in the year 2000, she met Corey Haim at an autograph show in Chicago, and they got engaged after 2 days. But his drug use and the fact that he stole about $4,000 worth of jewelry from her to fund his drug use meant that the engagement didn't last, unfortunately. That was 25 years ago now. Wow. And the only other thing I have is that Greg Jujon Roach, who plays Zach in the film, he went on to be a personal trainer, and he trained Tobey Maguire to get in shape for the first of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films in 2002, and he also trained Demi Moore for Striptease and G.I. Jane. So he had a respectable career in Hollywood behind the scenes after this.
Yeah, respectful. I don't know about with Psycho Cop, but
yes. And on the next episode, we're definitely covering Helen Keller versus Nightwolves.
Well, one last thing I was going to mention also for Cindy Geyer, she was also made appearances on The Real Housewives of New York City as well.
Oh,
so yeah, I don't think not as a main character. I don't think. But Well, Nathan, did you realise when you picked Psycho Cop there were so many layers to this movie?
No, I did not at all, but it's been a huge eye-opener.
Yes. So, what was the consensus on the group, Joseph, for this?
Well, before we get to that, follow us on Blue Sky at THC-podcast, listen on Patreon and YouTube to help support the show, or listen wherever you catch your pods if you just want to listen. Write to the show via the Hysteria Continues at gmail.com with feedback, general questions. Or you can just search our name. You'll find us. We only had 6 comments for Psycho Cop, so here are the top 3 plus a bonus. Ingo Dirkschneider says, inferior Maniac Cop clone, badly cast and acted, poor execution, not even tense or scary, and takes itself far too serious. I don't know if it took itself too seriously. I don't know if I agree with that. Robert Fries, and I'm not doing that joke again, says, just caught up with it. Fun, but extremely dumb. The killer was played by the same guy who played Bob Vance of Vance Refrigeration on the U.S. version of The Office. Yes, we mentioned that. Lee Russell says, I've always found this to be dull, although our Satanist cop had promise. That promise was fully realized in 1993's Psycho Cop Returns, directed by Adam Rifkin, which, typical of Rifkin, has had tons of sleazy fun, real hard-to-die vibes to that one. And that bonus, Sean McFall hopes that Eric's joke of the week is better than the one told at the beginning of this movie, and shall we find out, because I too have a joke of the week.
Yes, it is better. Well,
is it?
It's kind of similar.
Here is,
just before we go on to that, Justin, you said Psycho Cop didn't get released in the UK. Did you mean in cinemas or on VHS? No, Justin's gone. Okay, well, I can confirm it was on VHS.
He's dealing with Rosita again.
Yeah. So it was released on the RCA Columbia Pictures label, so it got a very high profile. Video release over here.
Okay, well, thank you. So, let's see. Good detective work there, Eric. Let's see if you can keep it up with your joke of the week.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
What did Detective Joe Vickers plant on his farm? A psycho crop. A psycho crop. Crop. K-R-O-P. No, not K-R-O-P. That's wrong. C-R-O-P. A psycho crop.
I like the stammering. That made it better. That's dangerously close to my joke of the week, though.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
What is the first thing an angry Erik Threlfall does upon waking up in the morning? He takes a psycho plop.
Hey! No! Stop that now! That did not deserve that.
Oh, that was fantastic, Joseph.
No, it wasn't.
I don't know if it was just the comparison with Eric's that made it so funny, but, well.
Hey, you lousy pig-faced bitch.
Oh.
So, okay. Right. Is there anything... Are we missing out on anything? I can't think.
We have some feedback, I think, don't we?
We do have some feedback. Okay. Would you want to... I need to pull mine up, as it were, if there is any. Erik, do you want to go first?
Okay, yeah, this is from Michael Stallings. Or Stallings, I think it's Stallings. My name is Michael Stallings, and I'm a huge slasher movie fan and had discovered your podcast almost 4 years ago during the pandemic. I had seen your name on a few Blu-ray releases over the past decade or so, but to be perfectly honest with you, I figured you were just another podcast these labels seem to add willy-nilly and didn't really pay much attention until I decided to listen to your track on the 88 Films release of Maniac. I fell instantly in love. Probably with me, I would say. I have since devoured nearly 60 of your Blu-ray commentaries. Have we done that many? Still have a few left to purchase. And have, as of 3 days ago, listened to every last episode of your show. Patreon is next. Going to do that when my husband and I get settled into a new home we are building. I don't have any earth-shattering revelations to reveal about myself or any film you have covered. This is mainly me taking a breather after acquainting myself and paying my respects. My husband, by the way, absolutely despises you guys, especially Justin. I say that, no, hang on, he says, I say that in jest because he's A, afraid of his own shadow and won't watch horror, and B, he has watched me systematically sucked in by your show for 4 years and change and probably would like some alone time. Erik, you are hilarious. Yay! Justin, you are a true ringleader.
Oh, thank you. I think that's a compliment.
Well, you do. You are a ringleader. Nathan really reminds me of my brother's kid, and I say that with affection. And Joseph, the straight man, somehow manages to be the voice of reason amongst all the chaos. Truly the perfect storm that entered my life. Thank you from Michael Stallings. P.S. Stop the fighting. Both Toya and Susie have their strengths and weaknesses.
Well, thank you, Michael, but never. That's kind of... That's the eternal battle.
I want to meet his... Who is his brother's kid? Is that what he said?
Yeah.
I want to meet his kid.
Well, obviously, his brother's son is brilliant, devilishly handsome, and has excellent taste in film.
And likes an Athonian.
Wow.
Yeah. I haven't had an Athonian in a very long time.
Probably not since the Halloween 2 commentary.
Although.
That was bad enough.
Yeah, don't speak too soon. There may be something brewing.
Yep.
So, well, thank you, Michael. I've got a very short one here. This one says, to my favourite member of the podcast, figure it out by my clue. I remember all of you are excellent. Your last name means the clearing of the serfs.
Yes, and I Googled this.
And that's you, is it, Erik?
It is me.
Oh.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Serfs are people who work on farms back in the olden days, isn't it? So a clearing of serfs is an area.
Did you kill farmers?
Yeah, did you bully them? I think that's probably what it means, isn't it? You bullied these farm workers.
I'm the victim of bullying.
That's what it is, you cleared the serfs. But I know you cleared them by telling jokes. Your ancestors would tell jokes.
Oh, you're so rude.
And everyone left.
You're so rude.
I think that must be it, mustn't
I'm
it?
going to stand for this.
That dried up whore! That whore! Enjoy your laughing while you can, because you'll see!
You can't speak to me like that!
You dirty nun fucker.
Oh my God, you've really set him off.
Yes. Well, the very short message goes up. Keep up the amazing work. Can you maybe tell us about any upcoming Blu-ray commentaries? I don't think we do have one, excuse me, in the wings that we've recorded. which is for one of the probably the most wanted slash movie of them all.
It's a massive title. I'll just say that
it's a massive title.
It is massive. Yeah.
But that's not been announced yet, has it? So we can't. I don't think we can tell anyone about it. But as soon as we can, we will let you know. And that was from Job, which is spelt Job, but pronounced Job, apparently. So thank you, Job, for that, apart from Erik being your number one.
In your face, Griswell.
So, okay. Well, what are we covering next time? Well, going from the sublime to the ridiculous. The last episode, I think I mentioned the Kollywood, which is a Tamil language Indian slasher whistle, not whisper, as I keep on calling it. So I thought, actually, I had a couple of people write and say, why not cover that? That'd be really interesting. It'd be a fun one to do. And I think it will be a fun one to see. So I'm 2.5 hours worth of complete insanity. And if you missed that episode, it is the Indian language remake of 1998's Urban Legend, with a side helping of What Women Want, the Mel Gibson comedy from 2000, I think it was. And it is completely bonkers. So if you can imagine Urban Legend, but even more bonkers, then that is this movie. So even if you haven't seen it, which you probably haven't because it is a little bit difficult to see, it's still worth listening in because it will be a lot of fun to talk about and hopefully listen to, and also talk a little bit about some of those other Indian slashers and their slightly magpie tendencies. So that's what we're covering next time on the Hysteria Continues. And what are we playing out with, Nathan?
We are going to play out with Every Breath You Take by the Police, because, it's the police.
I see what you did there. Yes.
Very good.
So, okay. Well, thank you for listening to Hysteria Continues. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and so catch us over on Patreon for loads more content. And we'll catch you next time. So thank you for listening, and say goodbye to the good people.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll be watching you.